First one back entertain me a little bit. All right. Now call the Economic Matters Committee to order. Thursday, September 12th at 4 p.m. I'm going to start with a roll call.
Alderwoman Finlayson, Ward 4, is here.
Thank you.
Alderman Savidge is present.
Thank you. And Alderman Marc Rodriguez is here, all present and accounted for. Next, I'm going to do approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the agenda as written.
Should we amend it to remove?
Oh, yeah. O2619, R3019, and R3119.
Okay.
Postpone action on those three pieces.
Give me a second.
Yeah, second.
Do you want to talk about what?
Yeah.
Sure. I left it to the discretion of one of the main sponsors, Alderman Finlayson, just since there are a lot of changes. And
We're going to amend the legislation, so there's really no reason to hear testimony on something that's not applicable.
Okay. If I could just say one thing, that's fine, but I did read through some of the material from Connie Del
Senior.
she sent, and it had a lot of good economic information about that industry. I don't know. So maybe when it does come back to us, we could have some copies we could go over. And look through.
We have a plethora of research.
Oh, good. Okay.
The committee that formed, I guess, 3 years ago, has been collecting all of the legislation from the various cities. And so we have a ton of it. And I can have it sent to you're accumulating. I had asked Takia to accumulate. So as we get stuff, I send it to her so that she can give us all of what we have. So we can look at everything. Conference and Visitors Bureau's perspective is one, and there are any number of others. So we have to look at all of them at the same time, I think.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Alderman Finlayson and Arnett, for taking it off. I'm not jealous of you.
Yeah. Yes.
So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we'll continue with business before the committee. In order, approval of the minutes from a while ago.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, our appointments, reappointments to committees. We have 3 today. I don't know if we have Miss Christina Ace here. No. Mr. Tyson Dorman. Mr. William Williams. All right. We'll start with you, sir. Why don't you come up front? So this is, just sit there. It's fine. And you can turn on the mic. That'd be great. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Williams is being nominated to be appointed to the Historic Preservation Commission. And we have his resume and background there. This is a first-time appointment, correct?
Correct.
Great. Well, thank you very much for volunteering to serve on such an important board for our city, or a commission for our city. Your resume is quite impressive. So you're an architect?
Yes, sir.
That's great. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit about you, your background, your interest in serving on the commission.
Well, it starts with I was born and raised in Annapolis. You hear that?
It's not on press where it
Hello?
says push. Oh, there you go.
It is on. I just didn't have it close enough. No, I was born and raised in Annapolis. I've lived here all my life. I am familiar with the history, have studied the history. I have a general interest in history in a broad sense, but also Annapolis specific. I have an architectural background. I have worked on a couple historic buildings in Annapolis, including the Carol Barrister House over at St. John's. I've worked with St. Mary's over here, so I have familiarity with the historic district and its requirements, although I've never presented in front of the historic committee. Generally, I thought it was going to be just an interesting thing to be a part of. There is often, not strong, but a little animosity towards the group, just because no one likes to be told what they can and cannot do. So there's a little challenge in getting people to see it the way it needs to be as opposed to the way they wish it would be. And that's an inviting challenge to be a part of. Okay. So when I was asked if I would care to sign up, I didn't have to give it much thought.
Okay, well, thank you, and definitely, this commission, like a few others, are especially important in the sense that quasi-judicial almost say in terms of approving or denying certain things, and so technical background and expertise is very much appreciated on these kinds as well. What do you think of bike lanes on Main Street? No, just kidding. That was a bad joke. All right, do you have any questions?
No, not a question. It's just that your background is very extensive, and I think you will be a welcome addition to the historic preservation. As you said, you've done a lot of work with any number of buildings at the Naval Academy as well as...
I am currently working on an addition over at Ricketts Hall. A lot of the work that I've done with them isn't directly with the federal government, although Ricketts is tied into that. It's all with the NAAA, which is their athletic arm, which is a private nonprofit. And that's where the stadium work. Been working with them on that probably about 15, 16 years. So, been around. I was project architect on the Severn Bank building also down in Westgate Circle. I was project architect on the Annapolis Rec Center. So I've worked with the city a couple times on things.
Well, thank you for volunteering your expertise to us.
You're quite welcome.
Alderman Savidge.
Yeah, thank you for your willingness to serve. And I see you're a lead accredited professional.
Yes, sir.
I think that'd be a good background to bring to the commission as we enter into a new age of energy efficiency and
Yes.
energy production downtown.
And that's a specific challenge in historic buildings.
Yes. Well, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I will move a favorable recommendation for Mr. Williams to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you very much for coming out here, and the final vote to approve you will be on the council, but I'm sure it won't be a problem.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We had two other appointments, and one's a reappointment. I think we had said a kind of informal policy here on this committee that for reappointments, we may go ahead without them here, but for new appointments, we'd prefer that they be here. Is that?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I can speak to Chris A's reappointment. She served on the Recreation Advisory Board for as long as I can remember, and has been a very important member and voice on that board. She happens to live in Ward 4. Do I hesitate?
Yeah.
And so she's been a great representative.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. I'll move a favorable recommendation.
Second.
All in favor of recommending the reappointment of Christina Ace to the Recreation Advisory Board, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And if okay with my colleagues, I'd rather defer the appointment of Mr. Dorman to the Building Board of Appeals, especially because it's a quasi-judicial.
That works.
Yeah? Sure. All right, so Ms. Green. That's the first time I've called you that?
Yeah.
Could we reach out to Hillary and let her know that for new appointments, like, okay, yeah, thank you. Next, we have introduction of the now infamous Stephen Rice. Mr. Rice is the city's new economic development manager. That's really exciting. Welcome to city government here.
Thank you.
Thank you. When did you start?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. When did you start?
July 26th.
All right. Wow. That's great. Well, invited Mr. Rice to be here, as you know, we have every time we have these meetings, a very important aspect to the Economic Matters Committee meeting are updates from our economic managing partners, or economic development and community development focused partners. So yourself, Hope, Mr. Evans in the back, and others periodically. But we realize that it tends to be a good conversation, and it never has really a set. It's not too formal, but it's just more of an update and what's going on. And as I indicated earlier, we'd just love to know a little bit about your background, maybe introduce yourself, kind of what are your goals, vision, what you think of your bosses so far. But this is a very exciting time and very exciting administration in terms of economic development push. So thank you and for your willingness to serve here, and look forward to working with you.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I love the city of Annapolis. Trying to think of the right words. This is my third tour in Annapolis, working here, and I actually fell in love with the city in high school.
Your mic isn't on.
Okay. I actually fell in love with the city in high school when I had the opportunity to serve as a page in the Maryland General Assembly. And I also had another opportunity to work here as Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for Howard County, and I was based just off of State Circle. So I'm happy to be here again. I hope I'll have another good run here in the city, and looking forward to working with all of you. By way of background, I was born in Baltimore and raised in Howard County. I graduated from high school and attended Morehouse College in Atlanta, where I was an economics major. And after graduation, I worked in New York City for a time. In my last position, I was an economic development policy analyst for the borough of Manhattan and for the city. Wow. I left New York City and attended Vanderbilt, where I received my MBA, and then came back to this area, working at the Greater Baltimore Urban League for a time doing economic development, before working in Howard County in economic development and in some policy roles. Most recently, I was Director of Community Development for American Communities Trust, based out of Baltimore. And I worked with New Markets tax credits on revitalization projects across the country. And I had an opportunity to get a sense of some community and economic development initiatives that were happening in different parts of America, and some of those perspectives and some of those initiatives might be beneficial to the city here. But it was a good opportunity because I was able to get an overview of what's happening elsewhere and get some ideas that might be applicable here. But I'm happy to be here. As far as what I've been doing since July 26th, I'm working through a 5-step process. I think our economic development strategic plan is a very good one. It has, I think, 14 different focal points, which is a lot. But what I like to do is maybe tweak it to a certain extent and try to focus on a few things that we can do very well and drive impact in those areas. So the first step of the process is meeting with various stakeholders to get ideas with respect to the opportunities and challenges from an economic development standpoint here in the city. The second step is benchmarking what's happening here in Annapolis against best practices when it comes to economic development. The third step or tranche is data analysis, looking at the available data that is Annapolis specific and trying to derive some insight into what, again, opportunities and challenges are before us. And ideally, of course, you want to get behind the numbers and see what the causes are. But if they're done well and the analysis is done well, then the numbers don't really lie. The next step or tranche is looking at the political environment and trying to get an assessment of what actually can be done given the political dynamics. And obviously, political dynamics are not static, but that's, I think, an important viewpoint. And then the final phase is looking at how we can position Annapolis for the future to be successful. And, a lot of the future, the kind of shiny things right now when it comes to, future growth is centered around big data, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. And if there's a role that Annapolis can play that plays to our strengths, I'd like to figure out how to do that as well. A couple of other things that I'm interested in and I think would be good for the city, and this is, I guess, I haven't gone through the 5 steps yet, but there are some initial things that I think might be good moving forward. I think if we could raise the city's profile on the world stage, it could help us with not only tourism but also driving foreign direct investment to help the city from an economic development standpoint. I'm currently working with our emergency manager to develop a playbook for supporting businesses before, during, and after a natural disaster. And I think that some of the initiatives that we're really exploring will be really good for the city once they're rolled out and kind of vetted. I'm also researching other cities that are somewhat similar to Annapolis to see if there's anything that they've done that's been innovative from an economic development standpoint. Specifically, I'm looking at Fredericksburg, Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, St. Michael's, and Frederick, Maryland. I'm also working on a strategy to support our maritime industry. Very soon I will be working on developing some marketing materials that we can use to help advertise and promote the city from a business development standpoint, and specifically when it comes to recruiting businesses to Annapolis. I want to have a nice pitch deck, as it's called. And I've also started some conversations with the mayor's office very recently on how we could support minority businesses in the city and foster minority business development. So that's what I have so far.
That's it?
That's a lot.
Thank you. Before we continue this conversation, I do want to do a housekeeping item for people, because I see new people in the back. Anna, hi. So we've removed the short-term rental legislation from today's agenda for further discussions before we bring it back on the agenda. I apologize. We didn't make this decision prior to the beginning of the meeting. So I apologize for the inconvenience of everyone coming out here. But if you're here for the short-term rental license ordinance, we're not discussing it today. Thank you. Sorry. So, well, thank you, Steve, or let's be formal, right? Mr. Rice, for coming out in your vision. I appreciate that. As I was mentioning earlier, we have our first date tomorrow. I don't know if you already sat down with Mr. Rice.
Not yet. I will schedule that with you.
Great. And my esteemed colleagues here over the last couple of years have entertained me with the stuff that I've been learning in my law school career at the moment, while I try to implement some aspects of that here in the city. They've been very welcoming and supportive of that. And this semester, this project, I'm in the Small Business and Community Equity Development Clinic at the University of Maryland Law School. And it's learning some really interesting tools, policy initiatives, resources, so forth, that's going around the concept of small business and its connection with community equity development, right? So I'm particularly interested in how we make a real drive for that. Completely appreciate and respect big players coming in, foreign direct investment, maritime industry, and so forth, recruiting businesses. But at the end of the day, I think if we're supporting small businesses, minority-owned businesses, and how it relates, matching them with resources and learning from, it's great that you've come from different jurisdictions, because learning even from what Baltimore City has, like a small business resource center out of the mayor's office, their own microcredit lending fund for these kind of small businesses. What partners are we working with so that our small businesses can take advantage of local and state and federal incentives that often go to the big players only because of the educational component, the time resource component, where small business owners are really just running their business day to day and don't have time many times to develop those relationships with city officials, with the various departments, because literally they're just in it all the time. And at the end of the day, how do we match those small business owners? Maybe they're not with local small business owners with property owners, so that the local property owners are often the ones that will support and believe a new concept or an entrepreneur, versus property owners that live outside or that may not have so much of a vested interest here, that may be more amicable towards or amenable towards larger, more stable type of companies and so forth. But at the end of the day, I would love a strategy in terms of what are we really doing to really drive that, because as we talk about several other components like housing affordability, for example, right, as a main issue, what are we doing to not just address the stock of affordable housing and what that means and what that looks like, but what are we doing to drive the business development, the income level up via that in order to support housing affordability. Does that make sense? And so I think that's what I think. Anyways, looking forward to this ongoing conversation with you on this as well. I don't know if my colleagues have any questions. Alderman Savidge?
Okay. Not a question, but your plan sounds lofty, and anything we can do to help you. We've gone round and round over the years trying to figure out how to deal with economic development in the city. And not before have I heard such a plan as what you're proposing, what you're actually working on now. So I just look forward to it never fails, does it? When you're talking, the phone rings, always. I just look forward to, what you're working on and helping you and supporting you in any way that we can.
I appreciate that. And I do have some ideas when it comes to small businesses and what we might be able to do to support them as well. So I'm looking forward to partnering.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Rice, I look forward to sitting down with you and talking about some of these things. I think at least for me, my ward, we have a large maritime district, and it's good to hear that you spoke about looking at that industry in particular here, because I think we have had challenges, in getting that to grow, and honestly, since it's large in my ward, we really want to make sure that gets some attention, and we definitely like to talk to you more about that. And also supportive of minority businesses. And I think as you're developing your own plan for that and how to approach it, I know personally I would like to see that have more emphasis in our comprehensive plan. Even the sector study, you may have heard about at this point. One of my concerns with the sector study was that some of the redevelopment, some of it's good, some of it I felt was too dense, but I was worried, regardless of whatever happened, would that end up driving out some of our small minority businesses? Because I think we'd probably all agree we don't want to see just chain stores and chain stores. So as we develop, how can we ensure that's the outcome we're going to achieve?
Yeah, sorry, another point, because I was going to talk to you.
Yeah, sure.
That's an excellent point. Like, how does, especially right now, the timing is critical in terms of the sector study and the comprehensive plan. How do we zoning, mapping for economic development, for small business development, for community equity development, right? Not just what tools or incentives, but in that sense, but more, that's critical.
And another thing that's come up in my ward is just how do we relate to the small business? Is we've had some larger complexes, buildings that are owned by large out-of-state corporations, and we've had instances where they are trying to drive out our local businesses there who are very popular, won awards locally, and in the past I haven't always gotten too much support from some of your predecessors. So I think that's one thing I would also like to talk about, is brainstorm ideas about is what can we pass to help, prevent that or encourage the local businesses in those kind of complexes. So I'm just kind of, I know I'm giving you a lot here, but these are some things I'd love to, again, sit down and talk with you about. My background's environment, so I'm really interested in how do we build a green green economy for the future, but also, and for the overall economic development, how do we do that in a sustainable manner in the city? So, welcome aboard, and
thank you.
Look forward to our future conversations.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to mention this, but since you've gotten into some of the details, the Forest Drive sector study, which is still, I guess, under review, has led us to a place where we've got to seriously consider what we want to be when we grow up, and particularly as it relates to what Forest Drive should be for the city. 5 of us share pieces of Forest Drive, but everybody shares all of Forest Drive. And so maybe, and one more thing for your plate, you can help us begin that discussion on what Forest Drive should look like. Should it be a commercial street, a community street where residents go and shop and walk to the stores and the like? Or should it be a high-speed highway to Route 50? And what the economic impact on those two scenarios will be on the city. So that's a discussion we need to have, and we need some guidance in getting to where we need to be so that our committees can make decisions based upon the goals that we've set. So that's a big, not a lofty task for you, so just...
Any way I can help.
Okay, thank you.
Question, have you met with the SOFO group, South of Forest Drive Business Organization?
I have not yet, but I have visited some businesses in the area, and I'm scheduled to go to my first meeting on the 18th at noon.
Okay.
So I will meet with them then.
And have you met Mr. Evans back there?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have. I'm trying to diligently visit all the districts and attend all the business district meetings.
Great. So, because SOFO, I mean, their businesses in all 3 of our wards represented by this business organization. They're very well structured. They give a lot back to the community, and literally all along Forest Drive. And just an example specifically, you know where Clock Tower Place is, Forest and
Gemini Drive.
Yeah, but have you been to Clock Tower?
I think so.
So it's a major planned unit development, like several shops in one concentrated area. Across the street is Brewster's Little Italy,
Annapolis Middle School.
the middle school.
Okay.
So there's a series of businesses and that's specifically Ward 5, the ward I represent, that you have Brewster's, you have the Echo Express Car Wash, Brewster's, Little Italy, offices where the Anne Arundel Medical Center have a clinic, a community clinic there, and so forth. And the businesses that I mentioned are all locally owned by residents that live here. Small businesses, known in the community, that have given back a lot. And as you drive there, you can just see how they could use so much support, right? There's small businesses that they want to put a sign up or revitalize kind of what it looks like. Next door, you have an empty structure with a sign that's half broken, that for one reason or another, after several requests, nothing's being done. But it just feels like I'm afraid of what's going to happen to those businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so traditionally, at least in my more experience here, a lot of the attention around economic development has been downtown, which I understand many of the reasons why. But I'm really excited to see how we can look at it more holistically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Evans. Looking forward to hearing how your summer was and
Thank you.
And what's going on.
So we've had a busy summer and years. Been a little time since we've gotten to give you an update.
Oh, can you just introduce yourself just for the...
Eric Evans with the Downtown Annapolis Partnership and the Annapolis Arts District.
Thank you.
So I want to go over some of the economic impact that the organizations that I work with have had this year, whether it's grants or events. This year we did a $10,000 re-landscaping project around Whitmore Garage on West Washington and Clay Street. It's another way of working around that garage that is usually vacant around the weekends. It's the entranceway to the historic Clay Street community. In the last year and a half, the Whitmore Park on the other side has been rehabbed with the help of the county's Park and Recs department. This summer they put a performance stage in there. I would love to see a performance one day actually happen on that stage other than on the first Sunday. We do fill it all day on the first Sunday. At Stanton Center this summer, we've spent over $3,000 on buying them art supplies, taking the kids to art classes this summer, taking them to field trips. We took them to the circus. We took them to the Ferris wheel at National Harbor. And those were a way to pay them back for the ones that attended the art classes and did some community projects. One of the community projects they did was there's a new mural that just went up in the corner of Northwest and Calvert Street, the home of the former Star Theater. And the kids from Stanton Center, working in conjunction with Future History Now, put up that mural. So it was a way to pay those young artists this summer for the work they did to take them on those field trips. From attending parking meetings with the city, one of the things that always comes up is parking garages are hidden and the signage leaves a little to be desired. I have found a $10,000 grant that I have offered the $10,000 to the city this spring to improve wayfinding signage to our parking garages downtown.
We'll remember that during budget season. Thank you.
I hope you take it before budget season, and then remember me in budget season.
That's what I meant.
Yes. That wayfinding signage will also pay for signage that was left out of the wayfinding program that I believe the city came up and city council approved. I think it was in 2013 or something way back then. To include places like Stanton Center, the Civil Rights Foot Soldiers Memorial, Bates Legacy Center, Maryland Hall, that were all left off of the Banneker Douglas Museum, that were all left off the city's wayfinding program. I found an additional $10,000 in grants this year. I've offered $5,000 to the city to re-landscape the entranceway to God's Court Garage, and $5,000 to the county to re-landscape around the new mural that went up on corner Northwest and Calvert Street there across from the Fireman's Memorial. Because one of the things that we hear in feedback is when we tell people to park in garages, a lot of times they don't look like they're maintained. And so cleaning up the entranceway, when the city says they don't have money, we went out and found it to help get over another one of those hurdles. Last year, we gave the city $20,000 to build out the bike master plan in downtown Annapolis and in the Murray Hill neighborhood. Public Works has completed, I do believe, the downtown portion, and they're still working on the Murray Hill portion so that Maryland Hall and the Boys and Girls Club will be connected to downtown via designated share roads and share the road signs and share roads on the pavement through the community to give them safe passage. I've been told that should be finished by this fall. We also earlier this year gave the city $3,000 to put in recycling down on City Dock. That hasn't happened yet. I'm not sure what the status is of that. We have funded $6,000 so far in custom bike racks. They're being made in Annapolis. We'll be delivering hopefully our first 5 in the next 2 weeks. I'm hoping our first 2 deliveries will go to Stanton Center and the Boys and Girls Club, but they will go throughout the Arts District, and they're being made locally here in Annapolis. The Arts District is working on a new business initiative to attract new businesses because there are some vacancies along West Street to attract artists. We have over $2,000 in the fund already. We expect to have $5,000 in that fund by the end of the year to start a marketing plan to attract new businesses and arts organizations to the West Street corridor. Good news about Main Street. Last time, we were talking about, there's a couple of vacancies on the street, and as soon as you get, 3 or 4 natural turnover spaces that go empty, people get nervous. Main Street is currently fully leased with the exception of buildings that are under construction. So that is some good news.
Did you say Main Street is fully leased?
With the exception of PNC Bank and the Historic Annapolis property that are under construction.
Great.
At the moment, so that's good news. Dock Street has 1 vacancy in the Harbor Square Mall. The rest of that area is leased. So our problem areas, our opportunity areas would be Maryland Avenue and West Street downtown. As far as events are going, Market Space will have a total of 5 events this year that are brand new. The block parties that we've been doing. Our upcoming ones are Fall Festival, September 22nd, the 50th Boat Show block parties. This year will be the 50th Sailboat Show. So October 10th, we're going to do a celebration for that. And November 10th, we're going to do a veteran celebration event. The 5 events this year will have a direct economic impact downtown for those small parties of $400,000. The First Sunday Arts Festivals have continued to grow this year. They bring about 70,000 people annually downtown with a direct impact of $5.6 million to downtown. Dinner Under the Stars It's a 17-week-long event. Next week is the last one of the season. So we invite you all guys to all come down for the season finale.
I'll be there.
All right. The direct economic impact is $1 million for that event downtown. So that includes money the city gets, $15 to $20 a car for parking, people going and getting ice cream, people having dinner and drinks, people doing shopping while they're downtown Annapolis. Current events we're working on is the Chocolate Binge Festival for December, and 3 Midnight Madness events in December. Business downtown on the weekends is good. Weekdays are a challenge. So today, before our coming here, I went over and I looked at our parking lot that we kind of tout as our most popular parking lot, which is City Dock. And I counted a total of 17 cars parked down in that lot. And that is typical of a Monday through Thursday environment during the day downtown.
17?
17 cars between the Harbor Master and Susan Campbell Park.
And how many spots are there? That's like 200? No. Am I remembering correctly? Like 200?
I think you're close to correct.
Okay. Wow.
And I took pictures. And I've taken pictures a couple of times since it's come up. So I just want to, share with you, when we talk about it, a lot of times our own memories where we come down on a Friday or Saturday night when it's 70 degrees and it's slamming and people are circling. But I challenge you guys when you leave here to go take a look at that and think about that as we kind of come up with piecemeal legislation on parking when we should be looking at it more holistically. So just want to bring that up. Other concerns we have, we've been looking at the city's working on its comp plan. And one of the things we looked at was downtown, we look at it as almost 3 separate business districts with Maryland Avenue, West Street, and kind of the Main Street waterfront corridor. And a lot of that is planning and zoning we started to look at. If you think about you're shopping on Main Street and you really don't know the layout of the land, and your connection to Maryland Avenue is going to be Francis Street. If you look at Francis Street, it's the back of retail on one side, and the other side is office buildings that have no connection to the outside world. So there's no reason for someone who doesn't know the area to want to walk up that street to find all the great shopping boutiques on Maryland Avenue. When you get over to West Street, you run around that problem on Church Circle between Main Street. And then, you get the first block of West Street and they're doing okay. The second block is filled a lot with office buildings that have no connection to the sidewalk. So when there's no connection to the sidewalk, and I mean that it's a dead zone because no one goes in and out those doors all day, it makes people feel less safe to walk it, and they think it's the end of the world and they turn around. So one of the thoughts is maybe if we have a commercial building that touches a sidewalk, not one that's set back, but one that touches the sidewalk, maybe it should have retail, restaurant, or service business. It should not have a front door that you have to be buzzed to get in with all the drapes pulled on it, if we want to have that be our commercial district. Also, when you look at areas that are zoned MX, like along West Street, the desire of that area is to have mixed-use zoning. So when you throw down something that's strictly residential or strictly office, and it's not a mix, there gets to be less people that walk in front of those blocks, which jeopardizes the next block down. So, and that then causes future failures going on. Other things we kind of looked at was also is sidewalk closures. Across from the Lowe's Hotel, we have a new building going up, and it's great to see that the project is almost finished, and it'll be mixed use with residential on top and commercial on the ground floor. But for the past almost year and a half, 2 years, the sidewalk has been closed, which forces that business that was next door to it out of business. We've seen this summer, most of the summer, in the dirt pit across from Weston, where they're going to build more townhouses, that sidewalk was closed for 3 months while they did grading. School Street, which is another entrance to the Maryland Avenue State Circle corridor downtown. That sidewalk has been closed off and on for almost 2 years while PNC Bank, the former PNC Bank building, has been rehabbed. That we really need to make sure we're looking out for our pedestrians who are walking to these storefronts. Is some concerns that we have. We also recently had an article in the paper. There was a fight downtown, and there's a little bloody mess out on the sidewalk from that fight because somebody broke out some windows. And that merchant called the city and asked for help because it was a biohazard site, and was told that's the responsibility of the merchant to clean the sidewalk. Personally, I understand if there's a trash out front, that it should be handled by the merchant. But if there is a biohazard out there that's worse than normal, it'd be nice to have a little support from the city with people who have proper training for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to let you guys know about 2 upcoming meetings that I just heard about this week, and I encourage you to share them with your constituents. Strong Towns is a popular organization. A lot of you guys are familiar with them. They will be coming to Annapolis on October the 10th at 11 a.m. To Asbury Church on West Street to talk about ways to make Annapolis even better. And that is open to the public and free of charge. The county is looking at how they can reimagine Whitmore Park to make it even better. And they're hosting a meeting September 21st at 10 a.m. at the Stanton Community Center. And that's all I got for you guys.
Wow, thank you.
Not much.
No, it's been a quiet summer.
I always enjoy these updates. Well, thank you, Eric, for everything that you're continuing to do for the city. Alderman Savidge?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And so, can you give me more information on Maryland Avenue? You said it's posing a challenge at the moment.
Yeah, so Maryland Avenue has several vacancies at the moment, and they have a couple stores that are getting ready. They're in the process of closing. Luckily, we also have some ribbon cutting happening next week on that street. But it's always a challenge when a street is kind of isolated from the pedestrian traffic. If you look at the pedestrian traffic on Main Street on a weekend, it can be so crowded it's almost like a traffic jam and you can't figure out how to walk around it. You know, but you don't see that on Maryland Avenue. So the question is how do you get people to naturally want to walk your town? Because we want them to park, and once they're parked, we want them to walk and not move that car. And so if you look at it, there's our wayfinding signage program has never been completed, which is one of the reasons we started trying to raise some funds for it. And the other thing you look at is when you look at the environment, do you want to walk to that area? And so when you're in the Maryland Avenue area, the area is appealing, but getting to it, there's not a natural way to make you want to walk up streets to explore, because the way we've zoned that area, Francis Street is a dead zone.
I had a question, now I blanked. Anyone else in the meantime?
Well, it is a question. Could you give us a copy of what you outlined for us? I think it would be appropriate to attach it to the minutes for this meeting. You guys are doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
And it needs to be publicized. And the hope would be that some of the recommendations that you've given today will permeate through the council and through the planning department so that they can be seriously considered and implemented. You know, the comp plan is about, well, they're working on it. So there should be some economic stimulus in the comp plan that speaks to what you just mentioned. Where should residences go and where should businesses go so that we are truly a walkable city, for example? So I think we need your report in writing
I'll be happy to email that to you.
Yeah, so that we can refer back to it and use it in planning. So, thank you.
No, thank you, Alderman Finlayson. I just echo that. One of the notes I wrote down was around the commercial district attached to, commercial districts where there's attached to sidewalk, like not have office buildings, right? Like how can we work with Mr. Rice and our planning team to...
Yeah, just to kind of give you an idea of the economic impact of that just on Main Street. If you are trying to rent a business space on the bottom of Main Street, it's not out of the question for you to pay $60, $65 a square foot. When you go up Main Street, near the top, you got a section of businesses that are closed off. I don't even know what some of them are, but they're probably lobbyist offices. They're not retail, restaurant, or service. The top of Main Street you can rent for $25 a square foot, because once people hit those buildings that are closed, you turn around and you walk back down. And that means they don't make it over to West Street if they parked at Hillman Garage or on the city dock, or they don't make it around School Street to explore State Circle or Maryland Avenue.
Are you able to disclose what two businesses are in the process of closing down, or is that sensitive?
Yeah, there's the Annapolis bookstore. Currently has a sign up going in it, so the businesses in that shop in that space will be closing, or in the process of closing.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure, are you Mr. Dorman in the back? No?
No, sir. My name is Brian Mom.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Are you here for just something like an appointment or something?
No, sir. I actually came for the STR.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by what else is going on here.
Okay.
I can see a lot of the STR people are commenting to play very well into these plans.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I mean, you're definitely welcome coming here. Just wanted to make sure that you weren't here to speak on something. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Well, next we just have one legislative item to discuss, the Watershed Restoration Fund. I think, Jackie, is that you're here? You want to come up? Or, yeah, and Teresa, our city manager. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? So I have to be honest, I spend most of the time preparing for this meeting for the short-term rental legislation.
Which we promptly postponed.
So if you could help educate me on I read through some of the materials, but see there's a lot of action being taken on it, so if you could just...
So on this ordinance, our watershed restoration fund can't be used for watershed restoration in the purposes of the code. And I'm sorry, I thought you guys would be finished before my other meeting was finished, so I don't have the papers in front of me, but I believe the language now is for land acquisition, construction, maintenance, et cetera, of public stormwater management facilities. And that's the only purposes the money can be used for. So it can't be used for watershed restoration projects, it can't be used for stream restorations, it can't be used for trash skimmers, it can't be used for no discharge zone education and things like that. So we researched what other jurisdictions' language was on their watershed restoration funds, found that we thought actually Anne Arundel County's was the most comprehensive. So we have proposed different language so that anything that supports our compliance with NPDES, TMDL, MS4, anything that supports that, you can use the Watershed Restoration Fund for, including stream and watershed restoration projects, including education outreach, and things that we can't currently use it for. All of the existing purposes, we believe, fall within the new purposes. So it doesn't eliminate them in any way. I think the Finance Committee recommended amending the bill so it has the language we have and says including all of those things that are in there now. I think that's fine too. I think it's covered, but if you want to do that, we certainly have no objection to that. And so that's the purpose of the amendment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jackie, is there anything you want to add?
No, it's just that I saw in your amendments there was one that would require a report be submitted every year that summarized how the money was spent, what projects it was spent on, what's planned, and what was current, and what was underway. And I suppose that that report would be generated by staff and that the funds could be used for that. But that's not specifically spelled out in the amendment. Or I don't know whether the funds are going to be used for an outside contractor to supply that report.
Of how the funds are being used?
If the funds are going to be used to...
I would not anticipate anyone from the outside having to prepare that report.
That's what I was going to ask.
No, it's, yeah, I mean, so, yeah, I proposed this amendment. It's not, my intention is not to have anything huge or robust, because I think as the city manager...
Is this your Savidge Tierney or no?
Yeah. As the city manager said before, a lot of the information, financial information, is within the CAFR. And so, but, you know, I don't think we can really expect people to dig through the CAFR. So my intention is just to kind of collect that information in a separate, even if it's just one page that summarizes. And I think it's good in the sense of collecting the financial information, but also highlighting the work that we've done using the fee. If it's gone to projects, if it's gone to Greenvest, what's Greenvest working on, what are they planning in the future? Nothing to, I know the county has a very nice color report, multi-page, but that's not quite the level of what I was
No, I don't think it's
envisioning.
necessary. And I think that for the TMDL reporting that we have to do MS4 reporting every year, we capture that information anyway. So it should be very easily summarized by staff.
So under the bill, the funds can be used to maintain and administer the watershed restoration fund. So if you were to amend it to include filing an annual report on the watershed restoration fund, I would consider that to be administration. It would fall under whoever administers the watershed restoration fund, which right now is the Department of Public Works. If your reorganization bill passes, it would fall under the Department of the Environment, and I would expect that department director to put the report together.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments so far to the...
I have a question about the Tierney Amendment, Amendment 4. It includes all of the definitions.
I haven't seen this one yet.
Obviously, there were no definitions attached to the legislation or in the original.
I'm not sure this would be necessary because these definitions should
Oh, that's my
already
question.
be elsewhere in the code.
This is the first I've seen this. I have no idea where Alderwoman Tierney got these definitions or
Yeah, there are a lot.
how or where they would apply. Are they used in in Title 17, Chapter 1710?
Oh, I don't know.
They're not. It's a very small
Do we have?
code section governing the watershed fund.
I don't know, and I mean, definition section,
I'll look it up.
really can...
I think the section on the watershed fund is very limited. It just says there shall be a fund, and it's used for public stormwater management.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I haven't seen this.
Until you take a look at it in our Office of Law, if they haven't already, I don't even want to start looking at this.
That is the definition section from 1710-50.
But what is 1710? 1710 is stormwater management. 1710-180 is the watershed restoration fund. So are these meant to be definitions for the watershed fund?
I'm
Or are they
guessing
meant to be
that's-
definitions for 1710 stormwater management? Because that's a whole different purpose of the bill than
Well-
what the purpose of this bill is.
And also, 1704 has general definitions for
Yeah,
an entire chapter. So I think whatever's in 1704 would take precedence.
What's 1710-050?
1710.
Anything?
050 definitions, yeah.
It's definitions
Yeah.
that apply to all of 1710.
Right, just the stormwater management section,
Yeah.
not the rest of the chapter 17.
So it is a duplication.
I don't know. This is the first I've seen it.
Yeah, we don't know for
Okay.
sure, but these definitions aren't used in the watershed language,
Right.
so you know,
All right.
I
Well,
don't think it's.
then let's just, I mean, we're going to take action on this, right? So let's just vote it down, is my recommendation.
Vote
Sorry,
down
Ellie.
the amendment or the entire
The amendment.
legislation?
The
Oh,
amendment.
okay.
Just because it's, I mean,
It looks like there is a new definition in there for public right-of-way.
easement?
Oh, is that the only thing that's changing?
It looks
Is right
like-
away? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's making sense. In the last part of the bill itself,
Oh yeah, in E, page 2, line 21.
yeah, the Department of Public
Or
Works is
22.
responsible for maintenance, repair, retrofit of stormwater facilities that lie in the public right-of-way, and she wanted to define what public right-of-way was. So it's not adding all of these definitions.
Okay.
It's adding to the definitions, public right-of-way.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, yeah.
Means the right to access land owned by the city or reserved by easement for the purposes of study, engineering, design, purchase, construction, expansion, repair, maintenance, landscaping, and inspection of public stormwater management systems. So it's just adding GG.
But if these definitions are only for the stormwater section, not the watershed restoration fund, why?
They're for chapter 1710.
Oh, okay.
1710-180 is the watershed fund.
Okay.
But it would also apply if public right-of-way was used anywhere else in 1710.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that makes sense. I remember that now.
Okay. Was this review drafted by the law office?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not clear, because what I'm seeing is 1710.050 definitions.
Right. So in the definition, so the definitions that apply to chapter 1710 are the ones found in 1710-050.
Okay,
So we're adding to those definitions public right-of-way because the term is
Oh, yeah,
used
GG. So-
in
Okay.
1710-180.
So we're simply adding,
A definition
GG
for public
and-
right-of-way.
okay, and then renumbering everything else.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So I guess we
That's
can.
fine, yeah.
Okay, Ellie.
I'll move the.
Now, you clear to explain this on,
Yeah, but let's go through.
You just want to do everything together?
Yeah, I mean, let's. So I understood your amendments about the report. Ellie's we're good with. Now we're missing the Arnett pen and
Finlayson, right.
Finlayson.
And it was simply to add the word "and" on page 1,
Okay.
lines 35 through 37.
And to strike out, right? Remove the strikeout.
And what impact does that have? 35, 37.
It just keeps the old language in there, which I think is fine. But as the city manager said, I think it's redundant, but it's...
I mean, does
Unstrike 35 through 37, and in line 37, insert "and." Okay.
Does any of the staff see concerns with?
no?
No.
All right. So if everyone's okay, is there a motion to?
Yeah, I'll move that we recommend favorably with all three amendments.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All 4 amendments.
So, okay, yeah. 4 amendments.
Of 4? Oh, you're right. Yes.
Everyone in favor of recommending O2519 favorably
As
as
amended.
amended? Please say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
And, Mr. Chair, just for the record, in here are the Environmental Commission recommendations, and we did talk a lot about those in the Environmental Matters Committee meeting. We tried to address a number of their concerns. Some of them I feel like require some more consideration,
Okay.
however.
Okay. Thanks. Well, thank you for coming out. I think that's all she wrote.
Mr. Chair, don't we need a motion to support 025 as amended?
You just did.
Yeah, we just did that. We didn't
all at
just
once,
approve the
yeah.
amendments?
You did
Okay.
everything.
All right.
Is there a motion to anything else for the good of the order? I love that.
Yeah, move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Lovely.